Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Jared Show. Before we get started, I just want to give you a heads up. Tyler had some problems with his Skype connection. He was using his cell phone, so it kept dropping the call, and there was a couple instances where it was skipping, and you'll hear it. Hopefully you listen to it and enjoy it. It's a great podcast. We talk about a lot of cool stuff. Tyler's a great guy, and I'm really glad to have him on the show. So hope you guys enjoy it. And now here's the show.
Jared, you sound like a real nice guy. You're not a bit, are you, Jared? You're a real guy who asks these questions really. You're not some guy out there playing a role on the radio who asks questions that I answer about 20 times a week anyway. This isn't a bit for you, right?
It's time for the Jared Show. Here's your host, Jared Suarez.
That's right. It's time for another episode of the Jared Show. Welcome, everybody, and thanks again for tuning in on iTunes, Stitcher, JaredShow.com, everywhere you listen to us. Tonight on the show, it's another part of, an integral part, really, of Live Fast, Die Poor. He's the rock journalist. Tyler Evans joins us on the show tonight. Tyler, what's going on, man?
What's up, Jared? How you doing?
Hey, man, how's it going? I'm doing pretty good. I'm really excited to have you here on the show. We got a lot to talk about. There's a lot of stuff that you've done that I feel that you really haven't put out there very much. You know, you don't publicize it a lot. You're not like, these are the articles that I do, and you make your videos on YouTube, which are awesome. But there's a lot of things that you've done, like some really kick-ass stuff. So let's get started, dude.
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
So first off, let's talk about how I got introduced to you, Live Fast, Die Poor. How long have you known those guys, and when did you? I know you recently moved out to California. How did that all transpire? Let's get into that.
All right. Well, the quick and dirty of it is, I met Justin and Byron on the same day in the summer of 2006. Justin was in this band, The Scarred. And what they would do these things called the Clampdown Tour, where they would take lesser-known bands that didn't have exposure that they really liked, on tour with them. And one of those bands was Destruct, which, as you know, because he was on the show, Byron was in Destruct. So they came through my town, Dalton, Georgia, which at the time had this really great punk scene. So I had this house where bands, when they came through, would tour. I guess my house, wasn't specifically designed for that, but when bands came through, they would stay with me. So they stayed at my house, and I remember I just bonded with them immediately, especially The Scarred, because Justin and I are both really into, Back to the Future and Indiana Jones and Star Wars, and we all like the same records and stuff like that. So I really liked those guys. I was 16 at the time, and they were, The Scarred were a huge band, and I loved Destruct, and I really liked them, and I wanted to get to know them more, so I kept in contact with them. And I went, the next time they came through, they let me go to Savannah with them, which was really, really cool. I didn't have a ride to the show in Savannah. So it was here's this awesome punk band, and I'm just some kid, and they're taking me with them. So I went to Savannah and back with them, and I just loved those guys. So I then tried to go on tour with them in 2007 as a roadie, but Justin, right before the tour started, broke his ankle. So that didn't actually wind up happening. And then eventually I did go on another tour in 2012. I was going to write a book about, but that tour, as you know, if you've read those articles, A Visitor's Guide to Sick City that I did for Amp Magazine, that tour didn't wind up happening. But to make ourselves sort of happy and not as miserable in this hot van in a miserable situation, we started making videos. And at the time, we started with American History with Byron Sin, which I started writing episodes for. And then I moved out to California about 6 months ago to get my writing career off the ground and to make myself more available for Live Fast, Die Poor.
That's pretty awesome, man. Now, had you ever been out to California before that, but just picking up and moving out to California?
Yeah, I like I said, I tried to go on that tour in 2007. I flew out to Anaheim, and I was here for 2 weeks. And then, I mean, going to California, I've written about before, going to California for the first time felt like coming home. like I love California, and it's just so beautiful out here, and the weather's amazing, and it's so different. It's like a different planet from Georgia. And then I kept coming out like once a year. I tried to come out and hang out with them for like some between a week or a couple days, as much as I could. And then finally, about 6 months ago, well, really about a year ago, I was like, screw it, I'm moving to California. And then it took a while to get the money, and I came right out.
Well, that's pretty awesome, man. The guys over at Live Fast Die Poor, you included, do a lot of really cool stuff. You mentioned one of my favorite guys is Byron Sin, who was on the show before. So if the listeners haven't checked out that podcast, go back and check that out, because I'm sure we'll talk about some of the stuff we talked about in that episode. But anyways,
Byron's awesome.
Byron is an interesting cat, man, and I've seen you've done a lot of videos. You've like done cameo pop-up videos in his videos, Justin's videos, the Randomland videos, the most recent one that just came out, the Tiki market.
Yeah, the International Tiki Marketplace. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really cool one. But you make your cameos in all these videos. Do you do that like on a purpose, or are you just trying to get your name out there, or you just like kind of hanging around them and you just get captured on film? What's the deal?
No, it started off with American History. I was like a writer for that show. I wrote or co-wrote almost every episode of American History with Byron Sin, and I didn't have any interest in being in front of the camera. I just really I love Byron, and he's so funny, and I was like, let's write scripted stuff because Byron's so funny and he pops on screen, it'll be easy. So then every once in a while, when I was out and around, they just need somebody to be in a video, and I just happened to be there. So I would pop in that way, and then Justin and I hang out all the time. So sometimes he'd be like, man, I don't want to go here by myself. You want to come? I'm like, sure. And then I would just wind up popping in the videos, because if Justin's recording and you're with him, you're going to wind up in a video. He'll even if you don't want to, he'll just put the camera in your face, and be like, Tyler, what do you think about this? And I liked it, but like I said, I never wanted to do it. Like, my primary thing has been writing, so I was never like, I want to be YouTube
you're breaking up
famous.
there.
I love YouTube, and I think and not that Justin or Byron are trying to get famous or anything either, but
Right.
YouTube was always more of a kind of a hobby. Oh no, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I guess
Jared!
we're on a bit of a delay or something. I don't know what's going on with it, but I can hear you clearly now. You cut out there for a second. It's probably just a cell phone that you got going on, but that's not a big deal. We can hear you pretty well. So, but
you can fix that post. Well, where did I leave off?
Well, you kind of just cut off right in the middle of talking about Justin and Byron and going places with them.
Oh yeah, so I would always wind up popping up in their videos, and I never really had an interest in being in front of the camera. I just liked, once in a while popping in and joining them in the fun and festivities. And then eventually, before I moved out, they were both like, you got to do your own thing when you get out here. I think, more content for Live Fast Die Poor and all that stuff. But I kind of have this habit of I know the entire history of rock and roll backwards and forwards because I love it so much.
Well, what was it?
I always talk there.
Oh man, you're breaking up really bad. You're breaking up really bad there. I could only hear bits and pieces. But I was going to ask you, if you can hear me now, what was it like the first time that you saw yourself on, Justin or Byron's videos, when you actually saw yourself in front of the camera? I know you said you wanted to be behind the camera, and you did such a great job at writing and stuff like that. So what was it like the first time you saw yourself and, got the reaction from people,
It was really interesting. It's so funny when you are first in videos with those guys, especially Justin stuff. We always joke, some people would be like, oh, whatever, man, Live Fast Die Poor is my favorite, because I guess they think Justin's name is Live Fast Die Poor. So that's kind of funny. But it's always interesting because you never look or sound on film how you think you do. In person, in real life, you sort of, I guess, have a mental image of how you look and sound, and it's never actually accurate. So I was like, man, my beard's pretty shaggy, stuff like that. But it didn't actually freak me out or anything. I liked it, and I had some experience with it before. In high school, I did my video announcements. I was the editor of that for a year or two, and I did stuff in front of the camera then. So it wasn't as big of a shock for me as it might have been for Justin, who, by the way,
You just cut out again. I'm going to give you a second to see if you can come back, but I lost like 10 seconds right there. Are you still there? Hey, man, I guess the call got dropped or something.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. This is just like one of the shitty things about using the cell phone, man. It's when you use a cell phone on the other side, you get things like dropped calls and all this the quality kind of drops, and it's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, that's the crappy thing about it. Like, I wish we could do this in studio.
Yeah, man, definitely. But the main thing that I wanted to have you on is to talk to you about some of this stuff, and that's what we're getting accomplished. So, I mean, we can deal with the quality a little bit. I mean, the main points that we're trying that I want to talk about are still getting covered. So, I mean, so far we talked about Justin and Byron and the Live Fast Die Poor kind of network. You've also been included in some of the videos, some other videos of a guy. I really don't know if he's associated with Live Fast Die Poor or he just makes a lot of appearances in their work like you do. But that's Adam the Woo.
Right. Yeah, Adam the Woo. Yeah, he's not really directly associated with Live Fast Die Poor. We're just friends with that guy.
True, yeah, he's a pretty funny guy, and it's pretty cool to see like all the people that he grabs, especially like when he grabs Byron and has him in an episode, or he has you in an episode. It's a lot of fun to see you guys interact with him, and he's a bit of a character. I see why you guys get along with him so well. Obviously, he does a lot of movie locations and a lot of history of culture and entertainment culture and stuff like that, But yeah, he's just another cool guy that I guess that you do videos with. That he's a good friend out there in California now.
Well, he doesn't live here.
Well, I mean, he's out there for right now, though.
Yeah, he's out here. That's the thing about Adam. He goes where the wind blows, and right now he's enjoying California. But you never know. Tomorrow he could be like, I want to go back to Florida, or I want to hang out in Maine. Like that's something I'm kind of jealous of Adam about a little bit. Is he has the freedom now to just be like, wherever the wind blows me, But Adam's great. He talked Justin into getting in front of the camera, and he's always a good sounding board for what you need to do for videos and stuff. Adam's great, and his videos, I mean, speak for themselves, and he's created and cultivated this amazing audience. Adam is a super, super guy.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully I can have him on the show sometime in the future. He's a really busy guy, and it's hard to track him down, but which is good because he's always creating entertaining content. I enjoy his videos, and I'm sure a lot of people do. So. But let's talk about something.
Yeah. I mean, the subscribers go up all the time.
Yeah, dude, definitely. I guess we're on some sort of delay now, but let's talk about something that you did, which was pretty cool. You sent me over a couple of articles, and one of the ones at the top, I guess you wrote a little bit for News Noise magazine, which is like
New Noise, yeah.
Yeah, New Noise magazine, and what is that? Is like music, entertainment magazine, I guess.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's like an underground music collective. It's really cool. It's by the same editor from Loudfest Rules magazine, and then Amp and Hills and Horns. She went out on her own and started her own thing.
That's pretty awesome, man. It looks like you've done some pretty cool stuff for them, but what I found really interesting was it looked like you got to, at one point, interview the Ramones?
Yeah, the Living Ramones, all except Marky. Right. Which is still a sore spot for me. But, yeah, that was one of the coolest things I ever did. I grew up, I make this joke all the time that I found the Ramones when I was 11 and it ruined my life. Because, it got me so into punk and all that stuff, and which was great. It was an amazing experience. I was full-on into punk for a solid decade. But the Ramones have always been my favorite band far and away, and I love that band so much. I know their history backwards and forwards, and I got into them really before I had constant internet access, because this was back 2000. So I just read liner notes, I read books, I watched documentaries, and I loved that band. It felt like they were a piece of me. So I got to, and I tracked them down individually. I started with Rich Ramone, who hadn't been interviewed in a long time. he would be really eager. Like, I don't want to say he was just eager for press, but it seemed like he would be willing to talk to me. And then through him, I found Monty Melnick again, and I talked to him, and then Tommy, and then CJ, and then Ed Stasium, this legendary producer. And I got to ask them, like, I didn't want to concentrate just fully on their time in the Ramones. I was interested in what they'd been doing since the Ramones broke up, especially people like Tommy, who left the band in 1978, I think, or 79. So that was the coolest thing for a fan, is just like, well, what have you been up to? Have you been sitting around the house? Have you been producing? Do you have other bands? And they were so nice. Like, they always, you always hear, don't meet your heroes, don't talk to your heroes, but those guys were sweet to me, and they were exactly what I wanted them to be, and so cool and candid, and they all talked to me after the interviews, like we're done recording for a long time, and that was one of the most positive experiences I've ever had doing interviews.
Well, yeah, that's pretty awesome, because sometimes when people meet somebody who is like a big part of their life, somebody that they're a big fan of, it kind of like ruins the experience a little bit, because it kind of ruins the mysticism, I guess, maybe.
Yeah,
because there's kind of like this, magical quality that they have, that you're, such a fan of. But when you meet them, it kind of just turns them into a real person. And sometimes they can even be like, have shitty personalities, or they're a dick or whatever like that. But for you, I mean, that's pretty awesome that you got to meet and talk to, the guys of a band that you had been a fan of since you were a kid, man. That's really awesome. When you talked to them, was there anything that you like found out that you like maybe didn't write about, or maybe you didn't maybe you didn't even realize that that would have ever came from them, something surprising, or open your eyes about them that you would have never known if you wouldn't have talked to them?
There are a few things as a fan that were really interesting that I can't really talk about, because they made a big deal of like, hey, I'm telling you this because you're a fan, but don't say anything. But stuff I can talk about, like Richie, I didn't know he talked to Dee Dee, I think a year before Dee Dee OD'd on heroin, and I didn't know they still talked, and that was amazing. And then, just finding out they're still all sort of friends with each other, like Monty Melnick still talks, and, CJ works with one of the old road crew still, and there are things like that. It was nice to know. And one of the things I liked most as a fan was, I asked CJ, I was like, when you came in the band, Johnny and Joey had this like famous feud over a girlfriend, they wouldn't talk, and what was it like in the band for you guys? Did they just never speak to each other? Were they cold? Was it awkward? And he was like, people always say that, and they weren't best friends. They were, even if it weren't for the girlfriend thing, they had a lot of differences politically and otherwise. But he said, like, we all talked and joked around and laughed, and we all loved the Ramones, so it wasn't really a problem. And I was like, that's exactly what you want to hear as a fan, that no matter how bad things got with each other personally, that they still loved what they were doing and believed in it so much that they could kind of put the petty stuff aside when they needed to. I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I guess I don't really know that much about the Ramones. I guess they're obviously all related, or were they brothers or something like that?
No, that's a common misconception. They use the surname Ramone because Dee Dee was a big fan of Paul McCartney, and in the early days of the Beatles, when they would stay in hotels and stuff, Paul was using the surname Paul Ramone. So Dee Dee started going by Dee Dee Ramone, and then they just all adopted it to kind of promote this whole idea of like unity and brotherhood, but they weren't actually related. They all grew up in Queens in the same like close neighborhoods, and they all went to Forest Hills High School, but no, they weren't actually related or brothers.
Very confusing, but interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's really awesome, man, and it's cool that that a band is willing to reach out and talk to somebody, especially a big fan like that. It looks like you also wrote some stuff for LA Weekly at one point.
Yeah, which was insane because the biggest reason I moved to California was to try to get my writing career off the ground. And before I left, I sent all these packets to a bunch of different publications, and one was LA Weekly. And I thought that like I would get to California and I would do whatever for a couple of years, and then I would start breaking in to the writing scene out here. But I actually got a response from LA Weekly the day after I arrived, I think the morning after, and the music editor, Ben, was like, hey man, I appreciated getting your packet, which, just had like a cover letter and a bunch of stuff I had written and some pitches and stuff. And he was like, well, why don't you pitch me something? So I pitched the Aquabats TV show, which I thought was really interesting, and he bought it. And it was cool because, I was actually getting paid something pretty nice to write. And I've done 3 articles for them so far, and I just pitched a 4th, waiting to hear back on that.
Very cool, man. And you just what is your I see that you did the How the Aquabats Super Show Came to Be article. That was about the TV show.
Right.
But I see that you do a lot of your main thing is rock journalism. What are your plans for putting together stories this coming year for LA Weekly? Now that you got them to bite, what are you gonna what are your ideas in the future?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? Because I kind of just started reimagining how I wanted my writing career to go, because I spent a long time. I've been writing for magazines since I was 17, and I'm 24 now. So, 7, almost 8 years I've been writing for magazines, and I've been doing Q&A interviews. I've been asking bands about their new albums and what they have going on, or reunions, or live shows, or DVDs, or tours, or that kind of stuff. And I kind of had this epiphany recently where I was like, I don't want to do Q&As anymore. I don't think it matters. I think it's boring. As I told someone recently, I was like, your favorite band right now, whoever your favorite band is, they're going to do 3 more albums and then break up, and then they're going to do a reunion show in 10 years. It's all the same stuff. Every time you interview a band, they just had a new album out, so you have to talk about lineup changes, or the new label, or the new songs, or what were you guys thinking about, and what are you going to do next, and tours coming up and stuff like that. And I was always like, this is boring for me, it's boring for the band, and it's probably boring for the reader. So I wanted to go at it a different way. And Live Fast Die Poor actually influenced this attitude a little bit, because what we try to do is find really interesting, cool people, because the world's a really positive and interesting place. At the right end, there's so many cool and interesting people. So I thought, with band, I don't want to talk about, of my band just released this new album, isn't that cool? Instead, I want to be like, I just interviewed this band, Only Crime, and I found out that their guitar player works, a regular job. He gets up at 6 a.m. and Only Crime is a super group. They've got people from Good Riddance and Black Flag. So it's isn't that cool that this guy's a super group, he's on a big label, and he still has to get up every morning and work a job. I want to talk about stuff like that. I didn't wind up talking about that with him, but if a band has something interesting going on, I don't even know what, say there's a bass player whose passion is maybe one day making the world's biggest hamburger or something. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the interesting thing, because these bands aren't just they're not just a product, they're actual people. They're real human people with real human lives who have really interesting stories a lot of the time. And while how they came up and that kind of deal is always interesting, I want to find the most interesting thing to talk about. I'm trying to interview this band right now called Nona, and for a long time they wouldn't do press, and they had their grandmother in charge of their website, and I was like, that's what I want to talk about. I don't even care what they have going on right now. I just want to talk about why their grandma was on the website, because that's really interesting to me,
Yeah, that's really crazy, man. It's cool to kind of take it away from. It's interesting to hear how you're describing this, because you're moving away from the the standard pattern of writing articles and in music articles, especially for bands and stuff. And it's really cool to see that you're gonna take it in a crazy different direction like that. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have crazy stories, because like you said, everybody who does anything creative has a personal story, be it interesting or not. And what's funny is a lot of times the things that you think would never be interesting turn out to be some of the most interesting content out there.
Right. I mean, I think growing up and reading people like Hunter Thompson and Lester Bangs and Chuck Klosterman, the interesting part of an article about a band, the person's actual story, the person doing the interview, the first person stuff is sometimes as interesting. I'm reading Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail right now, and Hunter Thompson was talking about this very complicated political issue with Nixon, but instead of trying to break it down for the audience, he has a conversation with a drunk pimp, and he's trying to explain to the drunk pimp what's going on with Nixon. So he accomplishes breaking down the complex political issue, but in a really interesting way. And I think like that kind of stuff is really cool. Like if I'm going to interview a band in person, like I want half the article to be about like to actually drive there and toggling on around. Like if I interview them at a restaurant, if like the manager is yelling and is like yelling at an employee or something, and how that affects the interview. Like I think making it 3-dimensional instead of just like average and 2-dimensional is like really where I want to go with stuff. Like that's always more interesting, I think, and I feel like it'll be a better experience for the reader too. And I also don't.
All right, actually, we're back. That was a technical difficulty. I guess the cell quality or something's going on with your phone there. But let's jump right back into this. You were talking about doing things a little bit different for the readers, and how you would like to pursue a different avenue in the way you create your content. And what I've been that I kind of think that you're doing is the stuff that you're creating and putting onto YouTube. What do you enjoy about doing YouTube videos, and why did you start doing YouTube videos?
I started doing it at the request of Justin and Byron, because they really wanted to put me in front of the camera to talk about music. So I started off. The first thing we did was on the way, the drive from Georgia to California. Justin and I did that drive together. We went by Johnny Cash's boyhood home. And I am a huge fan of Johnny Cash. I've said recently that, like, if I had a musical family, then Johnny Cash would be the patriarch. Like, I love Johnny Cash. I love everything about him. So seeing where he grew up and where he came from was really cool for me on that journey, because you get to see, like, here's a guy that came from nothing, and he wound up becoming this, like, immortal legend. So just to see where that seed was planted was amazing for me. And I know all this stuff about Johnny Cash anyway, so I went there, and you've seen the video. You can't really tell, but, like, I'm about to cry the entire time, because it's just so awe-inspiring and all-encompassing.
I imagine it's a very powerful place to be there. For the folks who haven't checked out that video, go check out Tyler's YouTube page and check this out, because it's basically just a small little house in the middle of a field, and you can see for miles and miles, and to sit in that spot and to be in that house, and you did a really good job of portraying this, of looking out the same window that a young Johnny Cash would have looked out, and started singing his gospels or whatever, and just looked out into that open field, and just to know that same kind of emotion that you got, he probably got at the same, doing the same thing. And it was a really powerful video at some points, and I can totally understand you having some emotion about it.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps right now just talking about it, because it's insane, like, just to see that, somebody who's made such a difference in my life. And like you said, getting to stand where he stood, where he learned to sing, and to see his bedroom and look out his bedroom window and all that stuff was incredible, because it's this tiny house that was, like you said, it's just in the middle of an Arkansas field in Dyess, Arkansas. And it's this just little tiny nondescript place that is this huge, legendary, influential, just building. And it's incredible. It's just like, it's just a house. It's just, it's just walls and a roof, but it housed this genius, this legend, and getting to see where he came from, and you can hear the influence of growing up there in his music, and it was amazing. And then from there I started I wanted to see more stuff like that, and then we started doing the rock vlogs, just so I could talk about rock and roll history in a way that I could be excited about it, and I could teach people stuff, and I wouldn't just be talking Justin's ear off about music all the time.
Yeah, which are awesome. They're really interesting. Actually, you spoke a little bit about Warren Zevon in one of your rock vlogs, which was really interesting. I didn't know very much about him at all. But that's really cool that you can just you take that time to when you get a whim, you think about Bruce Springsteen, or you think about somebody, you just get that content on the on video. Now, when you do those rock vlogs, do you obviously being a writer, do you write scripts to it, or do you just try to go off the cuff, improv, or is it more scripted?
I go the journalism route. Like when I'm going to interview a band, like I do research and take notes and get a general idea of what I want to ask, but like, that's how I would do a band. But for these rock vlogs, what I do is like I do the same research and take the same notes and just kind of work off that of what I want to talk about. But I never script it out. I think it's better to go like a little bit off the cuff, because like if you're just kind of trying to remember what to say, there's no passion behind it. So, and I want to talk about like interesting stories of those guys. Like Warren Zevon, not a lot of people know about, and he's my favorite musician. The Ramones are my favorite band. He's my favorite solo musician, and I love Bruce Springsteen. And I don't think people know about the big songs he's written that he didn't actually record. So there's this cool thing with him. And then I just did another one about Temple of the Dog, because I thought, like they're a really, really interesting band, even though they just did the one album. They have a really interesting story. And then I'm going to retool it after the Temple of the Dog one comes out, I think, to do this like Rock University thing, where like I go a little more over the top, like with a lab coat and and like beakers and like a marker board, and I actually do it like it's a history of rock and roll course, and like, where I can go through and teach the same stuff and have the same passion and still tell the same interesting stories, but in a way that I think is not just my face yelling at a camera in a garage.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun though, like kind of like rock class with Professor Tyler.
Exactly, like, because I have all this useless knowledge rattling around in my brain about rock and roll anyway, so getting to communicate that with people who might enjoy it. And it's cool, too, because, like, maybe I can talk about so much different stuff, and if you're not into one thing, you can be in the other thing, and I can still go on location, and I can just treat it like a field trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's another one. One of your like aspects of your videos is that you do like on location stuff. Like I think you went to the Beacon Street house from No Doubt.
Yeah.
Which was like a big thing in the '90s. Like that's where No Doubt started, and you went to the actual house and informed us a lot about it. I listened to No Doubt back in like the early '90s when Tragic Kingdom came out. I was like in 5th grade. That was the first cassette I ever bought, and still, like, you were still able to bring knowledge that I had absolutely no idea about. I never knew some of the things that were in that video, especially about that little house where everything started. But that's really cool that you still do. I like the way that you do on location stuff. Like you went to the Fender place. It was a factory or something.
Well, I went in Fullerton. There's his first shop, and then down the street was his first dedicated guitar factory, which is now a parking garage. But like, there's all this cool like little Fender stuff, and that I was like, man, I live close to this because I live in Fullerton. So I was like, man, this is really cool. I can go check this stuff out. And it's crazy too to see like neither his first shop nor the factory have anything to do with Fender anymore. Like I forgot what one is. It's like a tax place or something. And then, like I said, the factory's a parking garage. So it's kind of cool to see like these legendary places that are now sort of like mundane. And I think like that to me is like not even depressing. It's just super interesting. Like, this is where Fender really got off the ground, and now it's a parking garage, which for some people could be like a bummer. But for me, it's like, that's so interesting. You could be standing in the middle of the parking garage and have no idea that like, this factory produced guitars that like Eric Clapton bought when he was getting started and stuff. Yeah. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Some of the first, most legendary guitars that have been around. The style even was created, and all that. It's really interesting. That's one of the things that I like about your videos is the on location kind of stuff. What made you want to? I mean, obviously you drove by the Johnny Cash house and was doing that, but what gives you the inspiration to continue doing these on-location videos? Like, where do you get the idea to just, go find out where Fender started and do those?
Well, I think it's really more for like me than the audience even, because I as just a giant fan of music and a student of music, like, to see where all, like, for me, it's like insane. It's like a religious experience to see, like, where Johnny Cash grew up, or where this amazing album was written, or where Fender got his start. Like, and I just want to go see that stuff. If I wasn't doing videos, I would still make pilgrimages to these places just to check it out for my own edification. And just, I think it makes the whole thing, like, it makes it more real for me. Like, it adds another layer to what I love so much. And to actually stand there and see this stuff, like, so now I'll listen to Fender guitars a completely different way, or I'll listen to Tragic Kingdom a completely different way, or I'll listen to Johnny Cash lyrics a completely different way, because I can see for myself where this stuff happened. And the cool thing about it is, like, I do it for me just to see and talk about, but somebody who's also a fan of that stuff can watch the videos and get the same experience. So, like, there could be, some guy in a rear
All right, we got Tyler back on the line. There was again with the technical difficulties, Skype calls and cell phone connections are pretty difficult. But like Tyler was saying, you were saying about how you do these videos for you, but it's also pretty interesting for other people like myself. Really, I find those kind of videos very interesting because when am I ever going to get a chance to go out to the middle of nowhere, Arkansas, and see Johnny Cash's boyhood home? But with you, I not only got to go see there, but it was almost like a docent-led tour where I had somebody who was very informed, telling me about really cool shit. You were telling me like the original linoleum and the stove sat right here and it burned some of the loan. I was so informed and it was a really good video, and I like that. That's one of the things that you bring to your on-location videos, man. That's one of my favorite parts about what you do with your content on YouTube, really. And that's why I think the Live Fast, Die Poor, everything that you guys do is so popular and taking off right now, is because you're basically all three of you guys are really doing that. With all of your videos, Justin is taking you into Disneyland and all the really cool stuff around Southern California that he's finding now, and with Byron with his crazy facts and history and all the crazy places. Earlier this year he went over to the Viper Room, and he's been to a lot of cool stuff. And at the same time, he just goes out there, and you just go out there, and you see these experiences, these places for yourself. But then it's takes it to a different level because you're bringing you're bringing probably thousands, which could be millions, and down the road of people with you and joining you on these trips, which is really cool. So
yeah, that's our favorite part. I think is just getting to like sort of have sort of just extended friends, as Adam LeWoo would say, like just getting to getting to bring an audience along to stuff we think is cool is an amazing high.
Yeah, dude, definitely. And I'm really excited to see what you've got in store for us this year with your reimaginings, your retoolings and stuff. And I'm really excited to see what all of Live Fast, Die Poor has got going on for this year. Is there anything that you want to talk about before we wrap this up? Like anything that you want to promote, or, anything that you got coming up that you want to let the listeners know about?
Yeah, hopefully the cell phone doesn't drop again, but I would say like we've always got articles and stuff coming out. I'm going to be retooling Tyler Evans Rock Journalist in a more fun and cooler way, and I'm doing articles. Like I've been going to a lot of Randomland shoots with Justin, and I'm going to start incorporating more of that. There's mariachi music playing in the background now. I'm going to start incorporating stuff like I just went to the International Tiki Marketplace with him, so I'm going to write an article about that. I just went to Solvang with him, and I'm going to write an article about that. So I'm going to have more stuff coming out through New Noise and LA Weekly and the OC Register. Check all those out. Just search for me, Tyler Evans, on their websites. And we're posting on Live Fest, I Pour now every day, so there's always cool stuff from me or Justin. So just watch our stuff, and Byron, obviously. So watch our stuff, comment, like, subscribe, and we're just going to keep trying to make cool, fun, interesting content for you guys.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Keep entertaining me. I always have fun watching your videos. So thanks again for being on the show, man. I'm sorry about the connection issues that we had, but hopefully in the future I can have you back on the show. It would be really fun if I get all you guys, Byron and Justin, all at the same time. You guys can riff off each other, and we can all have a big conversation. It'll be a lot of fun. But hopefully we can do that in the future. Definitely thank you a lot for coming on the show with me today and talking to me. A lot of really cool stuff. And so the listeners definitely need to check out all the things that we were talking about. LiveFastDiePoor.com. Tyler Evans. What's your YouTube link? How do you link to your...
YouTube.com/Tyler Evans, or Tyler Rock Journalist /Tyler Rock Journalist.
Tyler Rock Journalist. All right, cool. And the listeners definitely take a look at that. And we'll be back next week on The Jared Show. I'm not sure who we're going to have on the show next week, but I guarantee you it'll be awesome. Thanks again to Tyler, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon. And that's it, people. Have a week.